Hi, I'm Jared, and today I'll be reviewing The Mushroom at the End of the World by Anna Lowenhaupt Tsing. So this summer, the summer of 2021, has been one of, once again, extreme weather. As I sit here today, we're watching the remnants of Hurricane Ida, a Category 4 storm, range past where it made landfall in Louisiana across the southeastern U.S. Indeed, we've seen historic heat levels across the country, across the continent, for the past several months. We saw the famous heat bulb that parked its way over the U.S. Pacific Northwest and British Columbia, which brought Death Valley level temperatures to a region that is more accustomed to umbrella and flannel weather. The Pacific Northwest, in particular, is famous for its vast and productive forests, which, like so many other ecosystems around the world, is facing a dire threat of ruination from the type of man-made warming that we've been seeing the effects of over these past few months. These forests, interestingly enough, are home to a curious, elusive fungi. Yes, a fungi, meaning a mushroom. And that is the Matsutake mushroom, right here on the cover. Luckily for us, as humans living in this natural world, these aromatic guys, these aromatic fungi, hold lessons for building a new future amid climate disruption. How, you might ask? Well, that's what this book is all about. What can the world's most valuable mushroom tell us about the future of life on Earth? A whole lot, in fact. Anna Tsing's The Mushroom at the End of the World is an anthropological and ecological engagement with big questions of life, climate change, economics, and fungi. Tsing is a professor of anthropology at the University of California, Santa Cruz, and also at Aarhus University in Denmark. And she spent 7 years doing fieldwork focused on the worlds and on the communities that form around the Matsutake mushroom, using this remarkable organism to think about how the splendor and chaos of life persists even in the ruins of systems blighted by exploitation. In doing so, she offers a vision for how humans and non-humans can live together in common patches of mutuality, cooperation, collaboration, and in so doing create new worlds in the midst of ecological collapse. So it's heady stuff, it seems lofty, and it is. It's an academic work, to be sure, but it is much more accessible than your average scholarly volume, at least that's what I found. I found it to be absolutely fascinating, a revelatory delight, if you're looking for my tagline. I thought that Professor Tsing does a wonderful job of lightly sprinkling her theoretical argument, which is all sort of tied up in notions of heterogeneity, assemblages, alienation under capitalism, throughout a series of brief chapters that are people and nature centered, okay? So it's not just all theory on theory, it's vignettes and it's interviews and it's portraits of people and landscapes and ecologies. This is a book based on years of fieldwork, like I said, interviews and also research. Tsing offers concise but rich portraits of Matsutake mushroom pickers, traders, importers, ecologists, foresters, and farmers. This patchwork of vignettes, observations, and anecdotes coheres into a larger narrative because they all rely on what Tsing calls the art of noticing, using small connections, harmonies, and disjunctures to identify the patterns she needs to tell her story. Now, not coincidentally, this art of noticing, she makes it quite clear in this book, is exactly what Matsutake pickers who forage through the forest floor to find these valuable little mushroom guys rely upon to make their livelihood during mushroom picking season in the U.S. Pacific Northwest and in Japan, where the Matsutake mushroom originated. So since the Matsutake are the protagonist of Tsing's work, I want to share a few of their more notable attributes. So some mushroom trivia incoming for you here. They are highly valued as gifts and culinary delicacies in Japanese culture. They're given as gifts from family members, business associates, friends, etc. The aroma of Matsutake, which emerge as summer transitions into winter or into autumn, are traditionally viewed as a herald of the arrival of autumn in Japanese folk tradition, and have been so for 1,000 years. You can look back at Japanese verse from the year like 700 or 800, and they talk about how the scent of the mushrooms in the forest means that autumn is coming. It's pretty remarkable. They've been a part of Japanese culture for 1,000 years. Matsutake, the mushrooms, grow best in collaboration with red pine trees. Okay, so if you see a red pine forest in Japan or in the Pacific Northwest, that's often a sign that Matsutake will be growing nearby. In Japan, red pine forests appear in lands that have been disturbed by human activity. So lands that have been disturbed by logging or agriculture or other type of usage or exploitation by humans. Relatedly, Matsutake cannot be cultivated. Okay, they can't be purposefully grown. You can't lay down Matsutake seeds, because those don't exist, in a row and have them all sprout up. They only live in the wild and must be foraged by experienced mushroom pickers. So this relative scarcity, right, they're hard to find, they don't grow everywhere, they can't be cultivated, coupled with their high demand as a prestige good, remember how I said that they're gift-giving items, makes them at times, depending on the market, the world's most valuable mushroom. Interesting. Matsutake are picked and sold at scale only in Japan and the US Pacific Northwest. In both places, Matsutake have created these sort of worlds and cultures and communities around them. They're these encounters and entanglements of accumulation and commerce and alienation that revolve all around the Matsutake mushrooms. It is in these sort of cracks where Matsutake worlds emerge. And this is where Tsing finds the patches of precarious, indeterminate life that animate her story. For Tsing, and this is key, Matsutake exist both inside and outside of capitalist relations. So they emerge in the forest floor, in the remnants of a patch of land or a region that has been disturbed by exploitation, extraction, cultivation, like logging or agriculture. They erupt from the soil because of the coordination then between these subterranean nets of mycorrhizal fungal communities. Mycorrhizal, that's a good word for you. Go look it up. mycorrhizal. And the roots of pine trees. So there's sort of this collaboration between the Matsutake nets, the networks, and the roots of the pine trees, which grow best on lands disturbed by sort of capitalist exploitation. They are then swept into this kind of low-tech, non-scalable labor of the freelance pickers. So these people who go out in small groups. In the Pacific Northwest, it's often people who are descendants of immigrants from Vietnam or Laos or Cambodia, or just, white folks who are kind of on the margins of what we would call traditional society here, who go out and by hand search out, find, and pick Matsutake mushrooms. And their own livelihoods in that way are emblematic of our broader sort of global economic precarity, because their whole livelihood is completely at the whims of the market. Then, through this process of picking, the Matsutake are disembedded from their ecosystems, translated into economic value through capitalist alienation by these sort of wholesalers, by the traders who purchase them from the pickers and sell them onto the global market. This sort of supply chain, this like messy, uncoordinated, brilliant network of life that exists along this tracery of encounters helps us to think about, in Tsing's estimation, how new worlds can emerge amid our modern ruins, the ecological ruins driven by climate crisis and climate change. So if that makes any sense, I guess what we're saying is the Matsutake mushrooms serve as a really interesting metaphor for how natural life, human life, non-human life, can grow, thrive, expand, augment, evolve, even in the midst of big global scale changes to the environment, to local regional ecologies, to human systems of work and play and life. And in that way, the mushroom at the end of the world helps us think about what our future could look like, helps us think about how we can collaborate with each other and how we can live and co-create and thrive or not thrive alongside the natural world of which we are an intimate part. So the mushroom at the end of the world is for lovers of nature writing, environmental history, eco-storytelling, and just folks who are curious to learn more about a cool fungi. It's a short book. It's easy to tackle in sort of small handfuls. It's not overly academic in its prose. It's easy to get through. And for this book, I have to give a special shout out to my brother, Lucas, from whom I borrowed this copy. Saw it on his bookshelf. I had heard about it before, and I nabbed it and I read it. And I'm so glad that I did. I would recommend, if you're interested in those types of things, go pick it up. And to everyone watching, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.